On the 14th of August 1967, a young television reporter was sent to the local scrapyard to cover a news story at Barry Island, where he counted 250 dead engines. Barry had become a graveyard for steam locomotives and a place of pilgrimage for railway enthusiasts. It was one of the first television news assignments for a man later to find fame on the Today programme, John Humphreys. He chose an engine at random and climbed aboard to deliver his eulogy for steam.
The great steam giants that once pounded the rails from Land's End to John O'Groats, rotting and rusting now on tracks of weed and grass. This really is the end of the line.
Or so it seemed, particularly as British Railways had told preservationists that steam would never be allowed back onto the main line. Mr. Humphreys disappeared to find fame in London, little realising that steam would follow in his tracks. "34027 Tor Valley of Southern's West Country class was the very engine the reporter had mounted all those years ago when he pronounced steam dead. The engine was saved by a single-minded Yorkshireman with a romantic streak, who rescued it from the scrapyard in 1980 as a birthday present for his wife. Restoring it was to prove a tremendous labour of love, for Tor Valley had been stripped of many almost irreplaceable components.
The going price for a lump of scrap without the tender was £6,000, which was quite a cheap initial price, even in those days, because the ones with copper boxes and a lot more non-ferrous fittings on were going for a lot more, £12,000 in some cases, and we decided to buy an express engine because we wanted something glamorous. And in our innocence, we thought we might just get away with spending another £10,000 on it to make it into something worthwhile. But 8 years down the trail and over 100,000 plus, well over 100,000 plus into it, we got a complete steam engine, which still wasn't certified for running on the British rail system, which we do now. But we did decide to upgrade it, and we spent best part of another £12,000 upgrading it to be capable and fit to run on the main line.
Among the missing bits were the nameplates. They simply couldn't afford to buy them back.
We had the originals offered us some time ago from a chap, I think he lived down on the south coast somewhere, but we decided he didn't want them because the money that was being asked was far too ridiculous. And in actual fact, these nameplates have been on the engine longer than the originals. So, in sentimental terms and historical terms, these have a few stories to tell, and these are a lot more valuable to us, really.
During its tour of duty partnering Clanline as one of the regular Orient Express locomotives, Tor Valley was frequently stabled at Stewart's Lane in London. Today, it's rostered on a tour to Portsmouth Harbour, along the Portsmouth Direct line via Woking and Guildford, a surprisingly tough route for a steam loco on a heavy train. Today's Tor Valley is a very different creature from the scrapyard wreck. Bert Hitchins still remembers the list of pluses and minuses when he was trying to make up his mind whether to buy it at all.
Pluses and minuses, the pluses are the modern design, the glamorous passenger engine, steel firebox, workable components which you can reach. The minuses are there was very little attached to it when we did buy it, and we had to buy 90% of the stuff manufacturer can buy it from new, which includes the tender.
The VSOE Pullman stock lives in an adjacent shed, and as usual was coupled to the suitably painted Class 73 electro diesel named the Royal Alex. Its job is to drag the stock into Victoria, and at the other end of the trip to pull the whole train backwards into the terminus at Portsmouth Harbour. It'll form part of the trailing load the rest of the time. The train exceeds 500 tonnes, so Tor Valley's footplate crew will earn their money. Their engine has done some of its heaviest work in the preservation era, and her basic character has become clear to the men who look after her.
She's a lady, she's graceful. If you likened her to a horse, she's like a chunky dun with lots of bottom. She's got lots of muscle there, lots of stamina. She certainly wants to run. You hit on her about 63 mile an hour on the speedo, and I've noticed it quite a number of times. It's just like another power comes in, as if somebody's come on the back here, or another engine's come into power, and she's off. She really does go. And then the drivers have to throttle her down and ease her down.
The stock arrives at Victoria's famous boat train platform. This was the starting point for so many romantic journeys to the continent, but today's Orient Express passengers are usually going no further than a day tour of southern England. It's steam which will make the day so memorable and different. Tor Valley's sparkling condition compares starkly with the decaying rabbit warren of railway lines in the shadow of Battersea's derelict power station. The EWS engine men are a cheerful bunch, but laid-back appearances disguise their underlying watchfulness. The few remaining Southern Mainline steam drivers have been reversing engines over the Thames for 40 years or more and are delighted to be ending their careers back on steam. Whether their engine looks any more incongruous than the permanent way machine is a matter of opinion. The man in charge, with his back to camera, is Dennis Donovan, the traction inspector, one of the most popular of railway ambassadors. The people who travel on Orient Express excursions are often ordinary working folk, celebrating a big day in their lives, and the pictures will end up in family scrapbooks. A mile or two out of Victoria, Tor Valley passes Stewart's Lane again and is about to tackle the sharp climb to Clapham Junction. The Bulleid's three-cylinder beat is almost lost in the insulated splendour of the train. Each Pullman car is a museum on wheels, but it's a different story in the humble support coach behind the engine. This is really a mobile workshop, with few comforts for the unpaid volunteers who act as the support crew. Most of them are listening to the engine on the short but spiteful bank at Long Hedge, once the site of a locomotive works. It's a burrowing junction under the Waterloo lines where Tor Valley has slipped to a standstill before. Typically of suburbia, the road calls for full regulator, followed immediately by minimum power in readiness for the speed restrictions through Clapham Junction. It's tricky stuff for the driver and fireman, as Bert Hitchin knows only too well.
It's heavy train. There's awkward turnouts and curves and little inclines and signal stops, as I've said, on the southern in suburbia. Therefore, the odds are stacked against the Pacific to keep its feet all the time. The rails are not too good, especially in November, December down here. There have been some abysmal rail conditions. And I think any locomotive would probably slip the same.
Please stand clear from the edge of platform 6. Please stand clear from the edge of platform 6. Please stand clear from the edge of platform 6.
As the smoke clears, Tor Valley heads for Hampshire. But in the countryside, the mist has been slow to clear, disguising the hilly nature of a route with pitches of 1 in 80 and 2 distinct summits. She leans hard left through leafy Virginia water, still throttled back, and onto the strange bridge that was never there in steam days, spanning the M25 motorway, before tiptoeing through the back gardens of London's outskirts. Photographers waiting for her exit from Woking get a contrast in railway liveries. In the support coach, Bert and his mates are listening again, this time for the climb up Whitley Bank where Surrey and Hampshire meet. The second summit is the South Downs, and here the locomotive toils uphill from Petersfield towards Burriton Tunnel. Then it's fast forward to the seaside, swooping through the downland towards Havant. This is Tor Valley running like a Rolls-Royce at 75 miles an hour, the maximum permitted for steam, but way below her capability.
Only 2 down, yeah.
There's a parking stop at the middle road at Havant Station where the lines from Brighton join the Portsmouth Direct. They arrived just 2 minutes down and will now try to keep the engine quiet. The traction inspector has had a firing turn and wonders whether they'll burn all the remaining fuel in the firebox on the few short miles into Portsmouth. The driver is Malcolm Hall, who spent his youth firing on the freight link at Eastleigh, so this is his backyard. They'll pull the train to Fareham and then run backwards into Portsmouth via the triangle at Cosham.
Nectar of the gods. All right, this side now. That was a whistle blowing. That noise you can hear is the cylinder cock still open. Regulator. That gauge there corresponds with what steam he's got in the front end there.
Why isn't he using all the steam, Dennis?
Because he'll slip. Now, there she goes. If you look at that steam pressure, that's what's in the front end. If he was to put that lot in, we'd go into a terrific spin. So he has to regulate it. Hence the name, regulator. Now what our fireman bloke's doing here is trying to get rid of some of the fire that I happen to put in there. We've only got about 25 minutes now, that uphill gradients. What did you have offer there, Mel? See now, the driver only had one yellow there, so we'll be prepared to stop round the corner if it's a red light. So he shut off.
Yeah, and is this road very subject to that? You get a lot of stops and starts.
Well, we can do it because of level crossing gates, etc. Like, you know, but if the signalman's a bit quick, which we are now, we're right away now, we are. As you can hear. Now you can see he's got more steam in the front end now. Now he's bringing it up. Now what? See? They're almost identical, those two gauges. This is where he changes gear, very similar to a car, which we've spoken about before. Changing up and down with a car.
In steam days, Malcolm Hall rarely strayed beyond the Hampshire area.
It's surprising how little distance you travelled on a steam locomotive turn, especially on a freight train. All our turns in that link were Salisbury, Bournemouth, Basingstoke, or Fratton, or Chichester. That's as far as we went. At that time, 63, Eastleigh was a busy steam shed, a very busy steam shed, with all manner of locomotives. From Bulleage, the Nelsons had just been retired, out of service, so the Bullies were the big engines. And we had all the old Southern engines, Q1s, Qs, S15s, Us, Ns, Midland tanks. What else do we have? Standards, 76 standards, 73 standards, and one or two 75 standards. So we had a good old mixture of steam locos.
His regular engines were standards like this 76 class loco.
They were based, almost all of them were based on LMS designs, the later LMS designs, and they were very functional, easy for the engineman engines, basically. Everything was where it should be, and they were good, strong engines and simple to work on, really. And when you were working every day on steam engines, you were looking for simple to work on, not complications.
These machines were gradually replacing Southern types, like the U-class, which Malcolm also commonly fired. His other regular mount was the S15. Those days of BR steam are remembered for the comradeship between engine men.
It's very much, I mean, I was never in the forces, but they liken it to the camaraderie in the forces, where people work together closely all the time, and you do build up a rapport with the people you work with, you know, and it's sort of magic, really.
When men like Malcolm Hall aren't driving steam locos, they're on driver-operator-only diesel turns.
Well, DOO is the norm on EWS. We are on our own all the time on the locomotive, and sometimes you can spend a whole shift and you only see, for instance, I did a turn a couple of weeks ago to Birmingham with tank train, and when you leave Eastleigh Yard you don't see a soul then until you get to Washwood Heath Yard in Birmingham. You see the shunter and you speak to him for about 20 minutes, half an hour, have your break, and then on the way back and they're on your own again.
So it's no surprise they enjoy steam. They're running backwards now. The train is being pulled by the Royal Alex towards Portsmouth Harbour Station. An opportunity for a closer look at the fire.
In that fire you'll see a blue haze. That's a good sign that fire's getting dirty. When you see a blue haze on a fire like that, especially when it's as low as that, it's a sure sign that it's getting dirty. It's either clinker or dusty. Now what happens when it is dusty, the dust settles down and forms into clinker. So you haven't got that amount of air coming through the fire. So that means it's got to be cleaned. And when you said, does that mean you've got some work to do, I would have said no, because I won't be doing this fire today. We're leaving it as a support group today.
But in VR days then, if you'd been trip like this?
Well, no, I won't contradict myself, because there was a time when we used to do mileage like this. Because we only had sometimes an hour turnaround, we wouldn't have cleaned the fire. We'd have darted it, lift the clinker up, broke it up, chased it round the box. That means it finishes up like a lot of ballast in the firebox, and then made the fire up on that. The idea is to break the sheet up. It's a sheet of clinker all over the bars. So once you put the dart in there, which is a fire iron, or rock the bars, you break it up and bring it to the surface and use it as ballast. Then make your fire up on it again. Sometimes a quick turnaround, you didn't have time to clean a fire. Not properly.
Portsmouth Harbour, the destination of the rail tour. The passengers will spend the afternoon touring HMS Victory and the docks, and the train will collect them again at tea time. But it'll be a busy afternoon with the engine, which is due to be coaled and watered at the nearby Fratton Yard. They've arrived bang on time. Tor Valley sits for a few moments in the sun, awaiting the very sharp 1 in 60 climb out of the harbour station. This is where Malcolm gets off, handing over to another easterly crew. But first, a quick check around the engine and a chance to consider the locomotive's performance from London. It's a 7p machine doing what is really a Class 8 engine's work, though the flies on the buffer suggest they haven't exactly hung about. How's it been for the driver?
Good trip. She steamed well, and it's quite a hard trip because West Country's only Class 7, and we got 10 Pullmans and an ED on the back, which makes it about 12 or 13 in weight, so quite a heavy train. So you needed all the power the engine's got to do the job.
And the trip is sort of all uphill and then all downhill. I can't quite understand it.
Yeah, the Portsmouth Direct is a very up and down hilly line. It's got 2 very high summits, and it's a struggle up them, and of course you get the ride down the other side, so it evens itself out, I suppose.
We could certainly hear the engine working hard, but sounding good. I mean, coming up Whitley Bank and
everyone likes that, yeah. Yeah, it's working in the second valve, all the regulator, and 50 on the cut-off, which is quite a lot for a West Country. That's why you could hear it well.
After the glories of Whitley Bank, the engine must now keep her feet, leaving Portsmouth Harbour. The empty coaching stock can't be left in the busy harbour station all afternoon, so 500 tons of it have got to be moved. She walks away with the sanders on, but it'll be a different story later in the day when the evening dew begins to combine with any diesel residue, making the rails slippery. For now, though, the enginemen are relieved.
That's it. That's the worst part. We're over the worst part. See, she took some sand here to come out of there. They're the sands we're working on. That's it. Beautiful, beautiful. That's it. Now we've got a green light, that's it. That's it.
The reason for the climb is that part of Portsmouth main station is a high-level station, so they get a rooftop view of the city as Dennis gives in to the temptation to show the fire who's boss.
That is clinker, look. There's your clinker, boy, look. There it is. That's what we've got to get rid of before we can go back up. And that's just coming about 100 miles on that.
Fratton was once a busy steam shed with everything down to the little terrier tanks that work the Hayling Island branch line. Today, Tor Valley has the place to herself. The support crew can work out how much coal and water she's used.
But in a typical trip, like from Victoria today into Portsmouth and then back here, I think there was something like 1,000 to 1,500 gallons left in the tender. Which has a capacity of 5,500 gallons.
Their main task is cleaning the fire, aided by the rocking grate. The oil gets topped up too, which isn't strictly necessary after 100 miles, but does give some peace of mind. And then it's just a case of rebuilding the fire, with the owner Bert Hitchin doing the donkey work. Bert was once a racing cyclist who was good enough to take part in the Tour de France, a man of some considerable character.
If he wants to do something, he's the sort of man that is capable of doing it. When you consider that Flying Scotsman has seen off 2, if not 3 millionaires, the commitment that Bert has is quite phenomenal, really, because they are very, very expensive things to run, and sometimes we are at a loss to understand how he manages it. But his commitment is 200% of his life. It's total. We all have a great admiration for the man.
As regards doing it all again, we're 20-odd years older, and it's hard to say really whether you'd do it again. You get committed once you get one, and once you're committed, you've got to pursue it through to the end. And you could turn your legs up in the air and sell it, I suppose, halfway through, and some people do. They do lose interest, and engines do change hands. In this particular case, it's not at the moment changing hands. So
You're not a quitter, are you?
No, you've got to be determined about these things and do them.
The passengers stroll back to their train in the last of the evening sunshine. The Orient Express is booked months in advance, such is the reputation of the service. Redevelopment of the old naval base is changing the harbour, but one thing remains the same from steam days. The piers of the harbour station won't support the weight of a bullet, which is the reason Tor Valley comes in on the trailing end of the train. The distant figure of Dennis Donovan relays the right of way, and the battle for adhesion is about to begin. The engine men shun a shove from the electro-diesel on the back. It remains a matter of pride to get away without assistance if they humanly can. At first it looks as though Tor Valley is away cleanly, and the driver can cautiously begin to wind in the cut-off just a fraction. But the real pull only begins once the train is clear of the platforms, which are level, and its full 500-ton weight sits on the engine as they climb the viaduct that can be seen in the foreground. With her fire glowing brightly, Tor Valley climbs away from the harbour, the sound of her labours echoing across the Portsmouth skyline. In the second part of this programme, we'll be looking in more detail at the engine's performance and joining the crew on the footplate for one of the most demanding climbs in southern England, when the Bullid will be operated at maximum output. On a foul winter's day, Tor Valley attempts to get to grips with a greasy rail on the last short leg of a charter from Victoria to Southampton docks. The engine is standing in for Mainline at the head of the Union Castle Express, a one-off train celebrating the centenary of the shipping line. This is the road crossing at Southampton made famous by ocean expresses. The few hundred yards to the terminal building allows an unusually good view of the light Bullid's motion. Of course, as a rebuilt example, Bullid's radical features are gone in favour of conventional valve gear. What hasn't changed much is the factor of adhesion, and Malcolm Hall, the driver, has experienced a 60-mile-an-hour slip on the down journey. This will be Malcolm's last stint in Tor Valley for the foreseeable future. The owner, Bert Hitchin, is planning spectacular rail tours in northern England. The engine will be much missed by the southern crews in spite of the odd slip.
The Bullies are known for slipping because they get a lot of power basically stood still. So obviously, like a powerful car, the wheels spin. Part of the problem is with so many diesel locomotives about in certain areas, you get a lot of oil on the line, which doesn't help at all. Partly it's the heavy trains, so it's a combination of things really, and you just got to be a little bit careful on that regulator. And what you do, you pump the regulator, you open it and shut it, open it and shut it, so that not too much steam is getting on the steam chest all at once. In that way, you're controlling the power really, not too much. Otherwise, they will slip.
Enginemen have had a good chance to compare Tor Valley and Mainline back to back. This is Tor Valley passing Micheldever at speed. The two types of Pacific, as might be expected, respond to slightly different driving techniques, particularly in terms of reverser setting.
Cut-off on Tor Valley, basically it's all the lot starting off with, and you can bring them back to 50 as you accelerate, and back to 30, and if you're on a climb, Tor Valley seems to like 30 on a climb. Say, for instance, the other week we climbed from Southampton, Northern Junction, right up to Micheldever. It's a steady old climb, and 30 with about 3 parts of the regulator, so that the steam chest is right over on the boiler pressure, and that's where she liked it, and that's where I left it. Mainline with the same train, you could probably get up to 25, slightly more cut-off, a lower percentage cut-off. So you're doing more with the steam, with a given amount of steam, so it's an easier trip basically. Where Tor Valley would be struggling with 13 on, Mainline is not struggling with 13 on. pulls them away. So that's just that really. One's a Class 7 and one's a Class 8, and it shows.
At 75 miles an hour, Tor Valley is just cantering along and rides very smoothly. But with this sort of speed limit, she's being held back.
We do have to hold them back. I mean, this 75 mile an hour is standards now, the WS standards and rail tracks, maximum speed 75 mile an hour. But in their early days, you could get these up to 90 quite easy, and that's with a train on. I'm talking about, you know, boat trains where they used to have 12 coaches and 2 vans. Yeah, they'd get them along there, and it has been known to do 100, and you can knock that bit out as well.
There's still the thorny question of rebuilt versus unrebuilt Bullets. Were the original engines freer running than Tor Valley, even if they were more fuel hungry? There are still enginemen about who can remember the original span cans in service and the operational problems that went with them. This is 257 Squadron at work on the Swanage Railway. That easy-to-wash boiler casing came at a price.
Well, from a driver's point of view, I mean, we had no problems, but there was this tendency of the oil bath leaking, and you could get a large accumulation of oil underneath, and when you went on the shed and you were cleaning the fire or dropping the fire, it was quite close to the casing, and a spark from there would go up and the whole engine would go up in flames, you know, quite quickly.
Should Bullitt have been so radical with his designs when wartime conditions prevented proper development? Probably not. In any event, the survival of both types has allowed them to be compared in preservation. 257 Squadron and Tor Valley both worked on the North Yorkshire moors for a while, and Neil Henderson, one of the leading lights on Tor Valley, had a chance to drive them both.
This engine I drove regularly on trains there, and another sister one to this, but in an unrebuilt form. I think it was called 257 Squadron. It's now based at the Swanage Railway. Speaking to many men over the years, and particularly firemen, one thing was apparent, and they all said the same: the unrebuilt, as opposed to this one, the rebuilt, would run a lot freer, so they say. And I don't know that that is true, but I do know it used to use a lot more coal, and all the men used to agree on that. They would say the unrebuilt used a tremendous amount of coal, maybe half a ton a day more. It depends what train you're working on.
Of the two engines, it's Tor Valley that has the harder life, and this was a typical scene with the VSOE stock. 500 plus tons on, a 1 in 100 bank, a red light ahead, and it's just started raining. The crew have built up the fire for maximum steam raising, but are reduced to watching all that energy disappear through the safety valves until signal failure is diagnosed and the traction inspector is authorised to proceed. Infrastructure problems, including poor track, have been a way of life for Tor Valley.
We've had our contretemps with signals and slipping to a stand on the bad rail down here, and we've also had our little bits and bats with rail track. Some of the track is abysmal. won't put horse and cart over it, let alone the steam engine.
One of the curious things about Tor Valley is that Bert and Liz Hitchin have now owned it longer than its entire working life with British Railways, and over the years they've been able to piece together a detailed picture of its history.
Well, it ended its days at Salisbury, 72B, which is on the front of the engine at the moment. It was withdrawn in April 1964. It was must have been told dead, or I don't know just how, but it got back to Nine Elms in London and stored there. And it was finally taken down with probably a lot more engines to Woodham Scrapyard in Barry, South Wales. And there it languished for 16 years, and then I bought it in 1980.
This is how Tor Valley will be remembered from its Orient Express days. It's seen here near Swanley, dressed in Golden Arrow kit for the regular tour of Kent. But the inside story has never really been told, so to put that right, we can join Tor Valley's last VSOE working, 2 days before Christmas, on a Surrey Hills luncheon special. Surprisingly, with just 2 hours before they're due off shed, there's only a tiny fire in the box.
We've got plenty of time. There's £125 there, as you can see. So, like everything you do in life, there's a right way and a wrong way. Sometimes the paraffin is just need paraffin and not oil, and it tends to flash up, so you need to have a bit of stick, just so there's a bit of distance between you and the action end of the rags. They're flaring up nicely. As you can see in there, we've already cleaned the grate. It's not too bad, so there it is.
Orient Express tours usually give the firemen a hard time, so they'll need a good clean fire to start with.
The fire deteriorates quite rapidly due to the type of train we work in, because it's stop go, stop go. I mean, the engine wasn't designed or built for that. It was built for going at 60, 75 miles an hour, pulling 10, 12 coaches. But with this train that we pull on, the Bosey train, it's usually a minimum 500 tons, usually more, 568, 570. And then of course it's all little twists and dips, and as you know, the track can be very greasy and slippery. In fact, this morning I would imagine it's quite greasy. So the fire, yes, it suffers of course.
This was Tor Valley joining the Mainline at Byfleet and New Haw on the previous trip. It's another of those burrowing junctions with a short, sharp gradient.
In suburbia, a lot of stopping and starting and chasing units, signals, red signals, caution signals, which all cause us to slow down and have to pick up speed, etc., etc. So with 500 tons behind the engine, sometimes more, the engine is working quite hard, and obviously have the wear and tear in the short, heavy loads and signal stops, etc., etc. But once we get underway, it'll compare to anything on the system.
John Neal is the rostered EWS driver, and one of the first things John wants to know is that the sanders are working. It's only when you see a driver making the long walk back to the cab that you remember just how big these engines are. £11:15. Tor Valley moves off shed with £180 on the clock, and plenty of time to bring her up to full working pressure, with departure from Victoria scheduled in just over an hour's time. After tootling down through Guildford, She emerges at Shalford Junction, which is where the line to Red Hill splits off from the Portsmouth Direct. Here she'll turn left across the water meadows, running gently under one of the countless speed checks after a leisurely journey down through the suburbs. But the easy bit of that journey is about to come to an end after the water stop at Shalford. So far, the fireman, Colin Kurzweil, has been mainly concerned with keeping the engine quiet, preventing it blowing off wastefully. But now he'll have 20 minutes to turn up the wick, in readiness for what is basically 4 miles at 1 in 100 from a standing start. There's 540 tonnes on the back, including the electro diesel, which won't be doing any pushing unless there's a problem.
Colin's built the fire up large at the back, as you can see, and it's tapered right down quite sharp. Now we spread it out a bit now towards the front. So that is a bed of energy. It is pretty well burnt through, not all of it. Now we're getting ready for going now, so we're getting up with the heat. He's closed the doors, he's put the blower on. See, the reverser is wound up to full gear almost. He's on about 73%. Having got rolling, we've knocked the reverser back. Looking and listening all the time. The regulator is open just onto the second valve, or the big valve if you like. The bank is not far ahead now, Mike. So we're really just still feeling the weight and the load and getting going. John is easing it now, and then he'll open the regulator. So she's now got the full weight of the train, you can feel her working. And she's fighting now, the battle is on. pressure is stock constant. Colin will now top up round the corners of the firebox. He'll pay particular attention going to the sides. As you can see, the fire is starting to get burnt through, nice and hot. We're now on the bank proper, aren't we, John? Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. The bell was the AWS saying the road is clear and we have a green signal. Injector's just been put on. Steam pressure is rising. It's the same again, Mike. Firing to the sides. All right, Cole.
The climb is in a couple of steps broken by easier sections, and the trick is to generate sufficient steam but no more than they need.
We're well into the bank now, Mike. But as you can see, she's going well. But it doesn't ease off, it gets worse. When we get to the top of this section, there's a level bit, then it goes steeper for another mile and a half, I think. She's working quite hard now. The bridge up ahead is called Welcome Bridge. And you know why that is.
And if you're not sure why it's called Welcome Bridge, well, the answer is written clearly on the boiler pressure gauge, now 40 pounds below the red line at 210. Generations of firemen have been glad of the brief respite of an easier gradient after the bridge. By now, Colin is firing little and often, but is rarely idle. The fire is one incandescent mass, instantly turning black coal into white heat.
She's doing very well. We're not pushing it, we're just doing the necessary. We could work it a lot harder and do a lot bigger fire, but these boys are professionals. So they're just showing what it can do. Not a sweat, calm and cool, totally in control. We now have a little level bit. We're having an ease now, then we go into the bank again. The next bit is 1 in 96.
The brief rumbling noise you're about to hear on the footplate, which sounds like crossing a bridge, is in fact the engine slipping.
That was a slip.
Tell me about it.
Well, you felt the vibration, then you heard it. John was there instantly ready to close it. She found her feet again on a good bit of dry rail.
kept going, it might have been a problem. Because when you get vicious, it sucks the water up, a siphoning effect, but that didn't happen. We're still on the bank, and we're turning on the bends now, so it's harder.
Speed has remained above 30 miles an hour, and John is working the cut-off at between 30 and 40% as they approach the top of the bank. The crew are now thinking ahead. There's a long downhill followed by a pathing stop, so they won't need to make much more steam.
Down the hill now. All over. That's the top of the bank now, Mike. It seemed like a non-event with 540 tons. Actually, we're one coach lighter this trip. Normally it's 568. Sometimes it's 600, just under. Today's been good with the weather. It's quite dry. If it's wet, it can be a different ball game altogether. But there you go. You've had a trip. It's been exciting. I hope you've enjoyed it.
After the stop at Betchworth, they set off towards Red Hill, and the Bullard is soon back in her stride. But it does leave one unanswered question. Why does the volunteer army labour for years to keep steam alive on the Mainline?
Why we do it and what the love. That's very hard to explain, Mike. It's the thrill of it. It's British. We rebuild it. We've stripped and rebuilt the engine twice. It's tremendous satisfaction. Like I said earlier, it's the prima donna. It needs nurturing, it needs loving, it needs care. If you do something wrong, it's unforgiving. It's just a tremendous, tremendous satisfaction and pleasure. And I hope it can continue.
And what about guys like John and Jim and Colin?
Well, these lads are just a godsend. Because if they didn't do what they did, we couldn't bring our engine out onto the network. Jim is one of the real old McCoy, John is, and Colin is. I wouldn't think you'd have to look very hard to find anywhere in the world today any three men who've got the experience and knowledge that these three chaps have. Yeah.
They all share the satisfaction of knowing that the Orient Express is legendary for making the customers happy. Indeed, many people like these Americans will come a very long way for a ride on this world-famous train. Some of them have even been on it before and will build their holidays around it. Few steam engines survive in America, so the visitors are full of praise for what's been managed here.
It's as delightful and as satisfying of an experience as you could ever ask for in travel. Because of the service and the food and the quality and the atmosphere and the ability to relax. It's perfect. You can't put any better touch on it. That's about as strong as it gets.
Sights like this are just what tourists want to see in Britain's shop window. Here, on one of the earlier tours, Tor Valley is looped off the main line at Paddock Wood. All these excursions end up back where they started. The way the fare-paying customers react at Victoria speaks volumes about where the future of mainline steam lies. Non-enthusiasts will pay a premium for steam, so long as it's pulling a restaurant on wheels with a quality image. These trips are always full, but not with steam buffs.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Safe journey home.
When the passengers have gone, Tor Valley reverses quietly back to Stewart's Lane, where the day is far from over. Bert Hitchin has been working tirelessly for the last 2 days, still gripped after 20 years in that passionate affair with this exacting and untamable metal creature.
She's a wild thing. She's the prima donna, if you like. You do something wrong, she's unforgiving. She bloody well tells you. So you've got to be on the ball, like I said, looking and listening all the time. That's all it is with steam engines. It's teamwork. It's part of the team. It's talking to you all the time. You're doing your bit with your mate, and he's doing his bit with you and the engine. It's a three-way thing. We've got all the elements of nature here, fire, steel and water, and you've got to be in harmony.
A few days before the end of the second millennium, another great example of Britain's engineering heritage lay at anchor. QE2, whose timeless beauty goes back to the 60s, was about to set sail from Southampton. Tor Valley, equally timeless, was a fitting vehicle for the special boat train that had been chartered that night. Interesting to note that the docks were full of hundreds of minis for export, more survivors of a brilliant design that goes back to the days of steam. Confirmation had come through that Tor Valley had lost her place at the head of the Orient Express. Flying Scotsman was to be tried out instead. Bert Hitchin knew he'd have to find new work for his engine.